Hello, so welcome back to the channel. This is me starting a new channel, a new series on the channel, which is again related to particle system. I see more and more often we are creating solution for shots without the help of the effects department, which may be good or may be bad, I don't know, but that's the reality. This is me studying, so I did not record the audio at the same time because I was testing stuff at home just to see the viability of the solutions I could find and then to bring the best solution to work. What you will see here is me going through one of the solutions I had. Eventually I did another particle system that complements this one, and the second part of the video will come soon. So this is something that I had to build to create like rings of a planet, something like Saturn, but it was like an alien whatever planet. And so the first thing I did was to research a lot on Google. So it's made of like like tiny rocks or asteroids or ice and things like that. So I said, okay, let's do it with a particle system. If we have several shots, which is the case for this in actual job situation, I had several shots I had to apply. So it was, if I had a particle system, it would be easy to move between shots. So I would just match the camera, or get the camera from the match move department, or get the camera from the CG department, and I would be able to give to the artists, to the compers, all the template basically done, and they would just switch the camera and the particle system would fall into the right place, and that worked. So this is something I did a couple of months ago. I don't know, like 4 months ago. I recorded this session that I was experimenting at home to try to find a solution for this ring system, which, as I said, this was very valuable experiment that I did at home. So when I built the same system at the office, I managed to build it much faster, and I managed to improve it, and I avoided some of the issues or the mistakes I did here. So how did I start this stuff? So first I researched a lot, and then I decided to build the rings in Blender. So I just built a couple of rings, as you guys can see, import the rings, and then started to populate it with a particle system just to see how far this would take me. Yeah, so I'm gonna run the video here at the double speed so you guys can see how far this will go. And I think it gets to a pretty cool place, but lots of experimentations and so on. As you guys can see, to get the basic feeling of a ring of a planet, it's quite easy. The tricky bit is to get it to behave the way you want. So I wanted it to be rotating, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to play with the forces and have it to have like a slight movement, because as we're changing per shot, I did not want it to be like a static stuff. I wanted to have a slow movement, and yeah, so that's what I'm doing here. And also I wanted it to be a little bit thick, so I did not want it to be like a very thin, because that's not how we work in real life. The rings of those planets like Saturn and so on, they are thin, but not like a paper thin. So they have the ice or rocks or stuff, they are kind of also in a Y scale. There's a couple of them are higher, a couple of them are lower, and I'm trying to add more variation to that, but the values are very low. because I don't want them to go super high or, you know, to be super strange. Yeah, so I think the thickness was nice. So I'm adding like a force, which is the particle force, to avoid them to go into the center, because as I was rotating them, they would eventually converge to the center of the force. So that's why I added a force to avoid that. So here I'm trying to play with that again, and you guys will see that, you know, I'm trying several things. One other solution that I came across, because I was having difficult time to control you know, the movement, and to avoid them to eventually from shot to shot, you know, to have like a continuity, to avoid the ring from looking very different. So one of the solutions is to just rotate as a geometry, and that's what I'm testing here, which is to create like a nice composition and rotate the whole ring together, the whole particle system, instead of making a force rotating it. Eventually try to have like a transform geo rotating the whole thing, and I think it went it was kind of a nice solution. So, you know, you need to decide what path to go in a case like this. If you go for in a very expensive way, I mean like render farm way, render farm heavy way, and if you don't achieve the goals, it doesn't make any sense. And if I have the whole particle system alive and moving, but when I make them they rotate, I cannot control it from shot to shot. That well also doesn't make a lot of sense. So the task here is to have both, like one that looks good, and I also can control it easily. So rotating the whole stuff seems to be a good solution. You know, in reality it will be like a tiny rotation in a transform geo, which is good. I made like a sphere in the center just to pretend it would be like a planet, and also to give more a sense of a scale. And eventually in the part 2 of this video, guys will see that I eventually made a much bigger ring, because the rings of those planets, it looks like they are like more visible when they're close to the planet itself, but they can also be mega giant and spread, you know, like thousands and millions of kilometers. So I eventually made a much bigger ring, but I think this was my first experiment trying to build something that looks decent, and this is here me trying to, you know, find myself way, and this is truly the base of what ended up being the real solution for the show. So I have a second scan line renderer just to deep remove, deep combine the planet and hold out the planet in deep, so it's in, you know, between the rings, between the particle system. And this became the basics of the actual solution of the show. You see that, you know, I don't have many particles right now, but I will crank this number up and have like lots and lots of them. So here is the second bit. I did this second experiment on the next day. I believe the first one was like Saturday, the other one was Sunday. So I don't know, I thought a little bit more about this, and this is me trying to make it look good, to see how good this would actually look, which is also, you know, important. I was trying to get the rings to pick up some material, the planet itself to pick up some material, you know, like increasing the amount of polygons, and I'm trying to build something more, you know, like realistic, and I'm having issues saving stuff. So yeah, So you guys will see more tests on the material, how it looks. I'm trying to add a bit more variation to the particles to avoid them looking like the same every time, and to have a little bit of both, like the transform geo controlling the movement, but also the particle system having a bit of a life, so they're not just moving like a static particle system, which would be super ugly. So that's what you guys are seeing here. I think I managed to get a good result. So if I rely on the transform geo to move this stuff, so it's not static, completely static, I don't have to make the particles move that much by themselves. So you know, I think by doing this you kind of fix both situations at once. So I'm just testing, you know, like shading, if you know the lights would be nice on this or not, and sometimes, you know, it doesn't go like you expect, and then you test. That's why I think it's very important to test this kind of stuff at home before you present. In my case, that I had to lead a show where this kind of stuff happened a lot. This kind of particles with planets and stuff was going to be used a lot, so I had to be sure that, you know, all the solutions were like feasible, doable. That's what I'm trying here, to be able to shade it properly, to be able to have it look you know, cleaner. I had to have a geometry and not just a particle system, pixels or blocks or whatever, but, you know, actual geometry, and that's making it a bit heavier, but it's all good. It will handle. I see it's trying to crash, but it will go back. Yeah, it's back. So now the system is much cleaner now. I'm trying to fight with the lights. It will be, give me a bit of a headache. Yeah, I think I will lose my patience, kill the light, and try to shade the particles without the light. Because I had like a material applied to the lights, and I think it was not doing what I wanted, and I was emitting, I believe it was 1000 particles, so it was a lot, and I think that was the main issue. But I will find a solution for this. And I've actually found out that the material I was trying to use was not gonna work, so I tried a clean constant, and you guys can see that, you know, I believe at this point the result was started to work. Wait, let's see. Yeah, see, so it's, you can see more of the shading of it. I was trying to inspect the quality of it. There is one trick I end up using, which I'm sure you guys know, but if you put into the background input into the skyline renderer, like a little reformat node, switch to scale and make it 2 times bigger, you will render out particles otherwise not visible. So you can do that, and then you can add another reformat node after the skyline rendering, scaling it down by 50%. So we will still retain those tiny little particles. So that is something that, you know, I did here. I think you guys will see it soon. I'm trying to get the lights in a good way, in a good position. Let's see. It's still not affecting. Now it is. Okay, so let's see how I'm gonna find a solution for this. And here you will see that the problem was with the amount of brightness on the texture. So I switched it to full constants to just, you know, have a lot of variation, and add that as a another particle. So it is basically the same sphere with different materials, basically. Just here I'm trying to keep it a bit more organized. So this makes it much lighter, which is also, you know, if you don't have any close-ups of the rings, that's totally fine to have it. If they are far away and tiny little dots, you don't have to render all this detail. So that's also what I'm testing here now. I'm trying to fake the light of the planet. Get in there, try some directional light, some spots, see what will give me the result that I want. The spotlight gives you more control. It's a bit more heavy and there's some crazy anti-aliasing thing. But if you don't have that very strong softness, it will be fine. I eventually switched to ray render to see, and then came back to skyline render to see which one will give me a cleaner result. And yeah, I'm applying like a fog material to the whole stuff to have it catch some. Then I'm trying to apply it on the texture themselves to see which will give me like a nicer result. And then I started to work on the particle itself, so it's not just spheres, but no tiny little polygons, whatever stuff, like pieces of small pieces of ice blocks. I did some work on the texture of the planet to kind of, you know, mimic something and be able to control it more. And this is testing. I highly recommend you guys doing this kind of stuff at home before you test this in a real work environment, so you can, you know, you can learn a lot and, you know, make less tests at work. I mean, this is also something I like, so I don't see it as a problem for me. I do it only when I can and when I have the time. So, yeah. So here I'm switching completely the system, as you guys can see. I decided to have a particle system per group of particles with slightly different parameters on all of them, and combine all of them together. So by doing this, I would have like groups of particles moving slightly different. Because the thing before was every time I added a variation, I would have a variation added to the whole group, and now I'm trying to have variation per group. And then I'm gonna do the dip to image, try to, you know, get alphas working, trying some glowy stuff, also to see how it responds, how it behaves. You know, color wise, I'm just at you know, like listening to music and doing lots of experiments, so lots and lots of tests and things. I came back to the dots particle system without any geometry, just to have like a quicker preview of how it to have like a faster response. In my computer I'm almost able to play this. At some point I will just play, and then it kind of holds up, not with the glows and stuff, but actually it actually plays. See, with the glows and so on. This is me playing. If you put the geometry, then it will not play the same. But you know, if you play with only the particle system, you can figure out stuff like speed in a much nicer way. Okay, so I'm gonna cut now and jump to another part of this whole testing stuff. And here I'm testing more like, you know, Z-pass, how much I can separate what's behind or in front, and I'm not using position mask passes right now. I'm just trying to use the normal passes for now. Eventually in the show I had a couple of position passes making sections of the ring brighter than other sections. But this is like a first experiment that, you know, showed me a lot of stuff. How to, you know, like this is me trying to boost the Z. I'm trying to keep my node graph less crazy, but it will get a bit crazy because, you know, I'm just testing stuff at home, going as fast as I can, so it will go a bit crazy. So trying to get some kind of a depth. Those things that are behind or in front of the planet will behave in a different way. And I will eventually achieve a look that I like, not necessarily will go for the to the show. I don't know. At this point, I'm also having a bit of fun and trying myself to see how this will look. Yeah. And I did a bit of a render to see, and this is the render I got. It has some, I put some crazy, freaky depth of field. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's fine. That's not the point. I'm just testing stuff, and, you know, the freaky depth of field doesn't make sense, but it looks cool. So yeah, that's a lot of testing also of things that are not for real. And this is round 2 of this test. Actually, the final solution was on round 3. So this is round 2. I am addressing issues I had on the first one. I'm trying to have a different approach. This was a couple of days or 1 week later or something. So I kind of retained the basic idea and redid rings that did not have the same problem we had before. I found out that if you import rings from Blender that are thick but with not a lot of faces, it will affect the way. So you can have particles from edges and all that stuff, but they wanted to gave me the best results or consistent results or from faces, so easier to achieve a look. So what I did here was to have a thin ring, and from that ring make a giant amount of particles, tiny ones, and then experiment with turbulence and stuff. So that's what I'm doing here. Experiment with turbulence in all the axes to have like a thicker, more interesting system than before, and using drag to control it. So you'll see I'm going through a lot of tests to how to achieve this in a different way. So my first solution was to have a group of rings from a CG application and emit from all of them at once, and then kind of paint them with constants and rotate them slightly via the particle system and also via a transform node. I'm gonna keep some of the good ideas and move the bad ones and change them a little bit. So here I have separate particles, like changed by the transform geo, making them bigger. So they have a inner circle, a medium distance circle, a big one, and another big one. So that's the attempt. I think this is also was also a good test, because I would have more variation inside of the previous particle system, because they, you know, one will go inside of the other one. This posed a lot of challenges also along the way, but, you know, I think in comparing to the previous solution, I think this gave me more options to work with. So I believe this is a good solution. So what I'm doing here now is trying to find well, now I have several particle system to control. So what I'm doing now is trying to have one vortex first, like one vortex, and try to frame hold them as a group. It didn't work. Try to frame hold them as a individual particle system. It did not work. So you can convert it to a geo using particle geo node, which is fine. And then you pick a frame, it will stop all of them. And then I'll try to have one transform geo moving the whole stuff together. I think that's the solution I end up doing on this case. So at this point, you know, I think they're looking pretty cool. I have a transform geo rotating the whole stuff, and that's like a giant amount of particles, but because I'm using just a particle to geo, it's very, very light, and I'm trying to get the camera to a nice position, trying to make like one of those, you know, traditional photos or point of view that you see like a nice composition. Yeah, so that's the issue now. And then I realized that it's spinning way too fast, so I was testing all of this stuff to change the shading, and I'm just trying like crazy ideas on how to make it more like, you know, like futuristic and stuff. And eventually the wireframe material, it's not gonna do it for me, but it can look cool. It's a nice experiment anyways. As I said, I'm not doing this on my work hours anyways, I'm doing it at home, so I allow myself to play a lot, and it can look cool if you give it a bit of time and try a bit. It can look nice, and that's what I'm doing here now. Trying to play with the modes, trying to find a cool one that retains some of the colors of the texture, but also playing with the geometry, know what I can see through or not, this kind of thing. So some crazy tests, and it looks like the least, you know, less visible makes it a bit nicer. I'm trying to test the Z. The Z was very, very faint, that's why I have an expression multiplying the Z a lot, the Z pass. And I'm trying to grade the stuff that is behind, grade the stuff that is in front, trying to give it a bit more of a feeling of depth in space, and they're rotating way too fast. Trying to play around with that curve to have it less rotating less wildly fast, less crazy. Adding some glow, testing stuff, and see what it looks like with colors, and really, you know, allowing me to play a little bit. So I'm gonna stop talking now and let you guys see testing how it goes. Try testing motion blurs and see if it will give me you know, help a little bit with the look of it, look of the particles. Yeah. So now I'm going back to the 3D system, trying something different. Tweaking the turbulence on them, animating turbulence. Which is pretty cool. And the whole deal, you know, when you add them up together, it looks very cool. Yeah, see, this is looking nicer than before. I'm not sure about the crazy colors, but the cool depth of field, that also doesn't make a lot of sense in space, but this is a cool experiment. And you're trying to understand what can be done or not. And also, when the supervisor asks stuff, you know up front what you can say yes I can do, or you know, what you should say, nah, this is not gonna work because of this or that. So this is me going and here you guys will see tweaking the planet, finding the correct axis, and pulling all the stuff together into just doing a little render to see how it looks. As I said, this was a very valid experiment that I did months ago. So really helped me to build the actual particle system at work. This is me just stealing the little block of ice I did for the other test to put on this one. And it gets, you know, a lot of particles. It gets a bit heavier, but it's still totally fine. This is me just trying to use the cache and, you know, understand that when you convert to geometry, it doesn't really work anymore. Let me switch into the actual skyline render. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, it looks cool. It's a bunch of particles and it's holding up. There's a lot of variation, going up, going down. So that's all. Yeah, this is just a lot of videos I had saved of me testing this stuff, and then on the second part of this video I'm gonna make the actual solution for the show that had particles running on the rings just like this, but then I had also another particle system on top of this one to add a bit more like, you know, like a design feel and less of a kind of a raw feel. This feels very raw, and we end up going with a more design feel to it also, so it's more like a graphical feel and less of a raw feel. But yeah, so after a long time I'm back with videos. I'm gonna do a part 2 of this, rebuilding the particle system with the solution that we actually used on the show, which is based on these experiments plus another experiment that I did not record but I can redo. That's fine. So that will be part 2 of this video, and this is just me rendering a quick video result of this, just for me to see how it looks. I'm gonna pause now and come back to play the final result of this test. And this is the final result. It rendered, I think, in 16 minutes or 15 minutes or something like that. It was quite fast to render. What I did not do here, but I mentioned in the video, is which is to use a reformat set to scale, and then we can put 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, whatever on the background of the skyline render, which will give you a much bigger frame, which means it will render even the tiniest of the particles, because some of the particles here will not be get rendered because they are so small. But if you do that, and after the skyline render you have another reformat going back to original resolution, the tiny little particles will be there as like tiny little pixels. So that is something I did not do here, but on the final solution I did. I didn't do it here because it didn't make a lot of sense anymore. So, and yeah, so I hope you guys feel inspired to try things like that at home. And if you get assigned you know, the task of building a template that has something you guys like to do, or, you know, feel that you need to experiment a little bit more, I highly recommend doing that. It's a fun exercise, and it'll give you more base or more structure when you go back to show the solution and try to to pitch your solution. So I think this is something very important for everyone. So I hope you guys liked, and I will make the second part, which is how I took this solution. I made it, you know, streamlined it, fixed some issues, and build it more like a designy way instead of a raw particle way. It is still a particle system, but the particle system, the little dots, these little pieces of ice geometry, are more like a texture to it, and I'll show you guys. So I believe I can do it next week, and then part 2 will be live. Thank you, and that's it.